Storytelling is like music. You can have a keyboard and you can have all the keys, but if you don't play them in an order, then it's just going to be noise. And this is what I see a lot of people do with their content, is they're playing a bunch of keys and think it's music, but really it's not. I didn't realize that my experiences and my upbringing was a gift. It was actually something that I was ashamed of because I felt like it disqualified me. But the Lord showed me that it was a gift, and it made open doors that not a lot of people actually, there's only probably 5 people in California that have the level of media access inside of incarceral settings that I do. So it just opened up like a whole nother thing that I never even knew was possible. I will say this, that there's been moments in business where I thought certain things would do more than what they did. Owning a home, owning this, doing the vacations. So I thought, oh, this is what's going to really bring a lot of fulfillment. And they're definitely cool, and they're definitely like, it's awesome, but it's a lot less than what I thought. And what I realize is that the things that really matter, are the things most of the time that you already have. I literally lost 90% of my friends within the first week of that dream because I couldn't stop talking about Jesus. They're just like, bro, like, you're killing me right now. Like, they all thought it was a phase. And so they just like, leave this guy alone. You know what I mean? I just remember saying, I might fail in business. I might not succeed, but at least my son will know that his father lived out what he believed in. And that was more important than succeeding in business. That was just like, man, I need to set the example for my son that, you know what, if you believe in something, go for it. The way that God sets things up, like he qualifies the called, you know what I mean? You don't need to be qualified. You just need to open your mouth and be willing to be used by him. Share your story. You don't have to talk about things you don't know. You don't have to be an expert on all these topics and all this stuff, but tell people what you know and he'll do the rest.
Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the Leverage and Lead podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Marla Harmon, and we have a special guest, Jesse Delgado. Jesse, thank you so much for joining me today, because we have been friends on Facebook for I don't even know how many years yet, and I have not actually had an opportunity to sit down and chat with you more about what you do and who you are as a person. I've just honestly been kind of a fan in the background, watching all of the production that you're doing, and it's super impressive. And every time, you're doing a great job with social media, by the way, because every time I see you post something, I'm like, man, that guy is a rock star. So thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Well, that's a huge compliment. And, once again, shows the power of social media, right? Because it'll make you look like something you're not. But thank you, though. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say welcome as well. And I have recently started really diving into your content, and have just been wowed by the quality, both of the cinematography as well as the storytelling, as well as your faith that you're sharing online. So thank you for that. I'm looking forward to consuming a lot of your content.
Well, I definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Jesse, can you tell, for the people who are unfamiliar with you, can you tell people about what it is that you do, how you use High Level, and who you serve?
Yeah, so I own a video production company in Sacramento, California, with my main niche being in government, which is an interesting niche to kind of get in. We can get into that later, but serving government clients, higher education, public safety, law enforcement, all types of government agencies, basically state agencies. And I've been doing that now for 12 years. I'm all self-taught, learned on YouTube, pretty much everything that I do. And so that's kind of the background of the production company. And then how I use High Level, I started using High Level, and actually, funny enough, I actually got introduced to you, Bridget, from another software world that you used to be in. And I was trying to find ways to basically do 2 things. One, create websites and use software for my own business. And then also to look for ways to be able to offer that amongst everything else that I offer as a video marketing kind of agency. And so that's how I got into it and started getting some passive income, and started seeing, wow, this is really great. And I think one of the things that really sets High Level apart is how much they invest in their software. I mean, that's the key to everything when you're trying to sell something is the company giving you the support you need to be able to put your name on their software and actually feel comfortable in giving it to your clients and selling it to other people. And so High Level has done an amazing job at doing that. And truthfully, admittingly, uh, I need to go more all in on selling High Level stuff because it has gotten so incredibly good in so many ways. So that's kind of how I'm using it, not to its full potential yet, but definitely getting some passive income and adding it on to all the other services that I offer.
So can you talk a little bit about how you got started with like video production? And I gotta know how you got into the government contracts, but let's start with the video production.
Yeah, so I've always been a creative, kind of my whole life. Actually, my background was I was really into hip hop culture, and for all the kind of older heads, hip hop used to be really. It wasn't just like one thing like rap. It was breakdancing, it was DJing, it was graffiti, it was emceeing or rhyming, it was beat making, and so there's a lot of different elements to hip hop. And as a young boy growing up in the 90s, I gravitated towards hip hop. And so that's kind of where my creative expression started kind of taking place. And I was actually a graffiti artist. I did DJing for a little while. And so I was always kind of a creative person, drawing and doing stuff like that. And I remember it was one moment in particular where I was sitting down on a couch, and at this particular time, my life was kind of not really going anywhere, and I was making some of the same mistakes that a lot of guys that I grew up with kind of were making. And I remember sitting down when I was watching a movie, and this thought came into my head, and it was like, I wonder what it would be like to make a movie. And I remember that, and I also know that now that wasn't just a thought. That was actually God speaking to me at that moment, at that time. And so it was from there I said, well, I should probably figure out how to, use a camera. So I never had used a camera before, jumped online, figured out what the camera, what I should be using, and picked up a camera, started learning how to use it. And because I had already kind of a background in hip hop, I knew a lot of rap artists and people that were doing rap music. And so, if you know anything about, especially about like hip hop artists, they're usually always looking for free promotion. You know what I mean? So I hit them all up and said, hey, let me shoot your music videos for you. And of course they were all like, yeah, And so I did that for several years. That's kind of how I got my start into video production, was doing music videos. And so I would travel all around California, both north and south, and doing music videos and doing all of that. And that's kind of how I got my start in video production.
So I have a question about how you transition to working with government, because I have a background in government. And when I got out of like the 9 to 5, where I was doing marketing for the government, I left the government when I started doing my own thing. So how did you transition into government?
Yeah, so basically from doing music videos, I was also working a corporate sales job at that particular time. And in 2017, I basically decided that it was time to leave my corporate sales job and to get into full time doing what I love to do, which is video production. And so I left that job and I got a job at a PR firm here in Sacramento, California, which is also to a government town, right? So that kind of plays hand in hand with it. But I got a job doing some PR work, which was a lot of like social media, was a lot of content, design, graphic design, just a bunch of random kind of things within PR. But that's where I got introduced to the idea of government. And I start to see and work on government campaigns through this PR firm. I still had a business on the side where I was doing, like, at this point, I was now doing like weddings, and I was doing corporate events, and I was doing testimonials, and I was doing a lot of real estate. And I was just kind of, anybody who would pay me to shoot a video is what I was doing. But it wasn't enough to actually be full time. And so basically that's where I got introduced to government. Now during 2020, COVID, right? Everything shut down. So I lost every single client that I had, and it wasn't a whole bunch, like I said, it wasn't like I was doing it full time, but I lost every client that I had, and the whole world shut down. So nobody was doing any events, nothing was happening. And so it was kind of like a reset. And it was at this time, actually, it was a very critical time in my life. I was in debt over my head. Things were just a mess. And it was at that time that I believe, once again, because everything for me comes back to my faith, but I believe that it was at that moment God spoke to me and said, look at where I put you. And I remember looking out the window across the street at what was the Capitol building here in Sacramento. And he said, look at where I put you. I put you in here to understand, to learn government, because that's where I'm calling you into. And I remember kind of just going like, oh man, I don't even follow politics. Like, I don't know nothing about this. This doesn't interest me at all. But I said, okay, yes, you have. And it just so happened that at that time, COVID, the only people that were spending money was the government. So I was like, okay, well, they're paying. And, there's a lot of PSA kind of work that was happening still. And that's basically, once I jumped in, I started beginning to see that the government actually was an amazing client to have, because they never run out of money. The money that they spend is not theirs, and they have to spend it by the end of the year. So like it fit the criteria of a perfect customer, and I just went all in on it.
So just to follow up on that, you mentioned about them being a perfect customer, but the one thing that I found in working with the government is that the wheels of bureaucracy turn very slow, and that includes edits and approvals. Do you find that to be true as well?
Oh yeah. The sales cycle is the longest kind of sales cycle that you can imagine. And the payments, the way that they pay things out is just like, you really got to foot the bill up front and carry. And this is all things I had to learn.
Mhm.
And, just kind of a separate little side note is I learned a big valuable lesson at the beginning of this year, because with my government contracting, I'm here in California, and a lot of what I do is like community-based type messaging, anti-violence, law enforcement, public safety. So it's a lot of that, which happens to in my area fall under like DEI. It's anything that's reaching communities or minority people groups falls underneath that. And as we know, a lot of that funding got cut at the beginning of the year. So I actually lost the most I've ever lost at the beginning of this year from those contracts being cut, which I learned a valuable lesson that yes, government is touchable. You know what I mean? So that's a whole nother conversation though. But yeah, it moves slowly for sure.
Are you a coach or consultant trying to build your business with high level, but feeling overwhelmed and overworked? Are you putting in long hours, but still struggling to land your first client? You're not alone. Many entrepreneurs believe they just need to work harder. But what if your problem isn't your work ethic, but your lack of a system? I've spent the last 6 years perfecting a system called the Vision Blueprint. It's a structured method to build a successful business with high level without the burnout. Stop the insanity of endless trial and error. Join my free community today and get access to all my tutorials plus live coaching with me 4 days a week. Let me personally guide you as you implement this system and build the life that you want, not just the business. Now, back to the conversation.
Did you have any conflicts of interest working with the government and being such an outspoken Christian?
That's a really great question, especially here in California. California, as everybody knows, is a very liberal, progressive, and I hold to more of conservative, traditional values. And so what's really interesting is that no, I've never once had to compromise my values. I've never once had to quiet down I think that I would give a lot of credit to God, because I really did have a life-saving experience and encounter with him. Like, nobody's going to shake my faith, or nobody's going to tell me something what I know is not real. And because I'm so deep in it, I can show you and prove to you probably better that you can probably prove to me that he's not real. So I think people just kind of respect it. And I have seen some cases where it rubs them the wrong way or something, but I'm also too, like, not just putting it all in their face either. I'm here to do a job. You're hiring me to do a job. And some jobs, I will quite tell you, I'm probably not the best guy for that job. It's just not. Storytelling is what I do. These are the storytellings that I know. This is why people hire me. And I've been blessed to be able to have a reputation telling the kind of stories that come natural to me. And so 9 times out of 10, that's why people are hiring me, is to tell those kind of stories.
Would you mind sharing the story about how God saved your life?
Oh yeah, it's a great story. I grew up in, low income kind of poverty, that whole thing. And basically, it's just a lot of drugs, a lot of violence, a lot of the model of like how to win in life is just really how to lose in life. You know what I mean? And so I was following a lot of those models, and I was 18 years old. And interesting enough, I was actually preparing some drugs and some things to do. And once again, this voice came to me, and this thought was, what would make you change? And I remember thinking to myself as I'm like preparing everything, I'm sitting there having this conversation with myself, and I'm like, well, I'll probably change one day when I get a family. That was always the kind of like, oh, like it's just that easy. You just turn off a switch, right? Like I'll probably change one day when I get a family, or, and I said this in my head, or God, if he was real. And at that time, I didn't even know if he was real, but I thought, hey, if there really is a God out there, then yeah, I'd do it for him, because he probably wouldn't want me doing this. And it was that question that actually started a journey. There was some things that happened actually that night, which made me look back into that question if God is real. And I realized that, you know what? I couldn't say that I actually tried to figure out if he was real or not. Like I couldn't say that I actually tried to find the answer. And so that led me on a journey where I started, I'm a very intellectual kind of person, so I started doing a lot of research, and I started doing some stuff like that, and started praying to just like, God, whoever you are out there, I'm trying to find you. If you want to find me, here I am, kind of thing. And I started looking into a lot of Eastern religions. I started there first because I felt like Christianity would be the easy route, because it's Western. It's kind of more what I'm comfortable with, but maybe God is Buddhist or something else. And so I started learning a lot of Eastern religion and philosophy and all this kind of stuff, and was just going deep dive into all this stuff. And it didn't take long until I had an encounter inside of a dream where Jesus Christ showed himself to me. And it was a dream like, I don't think I'll ever have a dream like that. It was more than a dream. I can say that for sure. It was a spiritual encounter, and I knew nothing about how to respond to God or anything like that. But the minute that I had that dream, I woke up with tears in my eyes, already just falling out my face. The only thing that I could do instinctively was just drop to my knees and just weep. And I did, and I didn't even know what was happening. I'm like, man, like this is crazy. And so that is what began my journey. And from there, I still wasn't convinced on the Bible. You know what I mean? Like I was okay, Jesus, all right, he came to me in a dream. But the Bible, here you hear all these things like it was written by men, and it's not accurate, and there's a lot of flaws. And so that began a journey of trying to actually disprove the Bible a little bit, which only strengthened my faith in the Bible. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
I love that. I love it. Just to share a personal story with me, I had a dream just like that. After my mom passed away, we had it was a good relationship. We both knew that we loved each other, but it was just, I think we were a lot alike, and so we butted heads a lot. And after she died, I was so overwhelmed, and I was praying, and I was like, God, I just feel so like this overwhelming regret, like, oh, I should have done this and I should have done that. And then I went to sleep one night. It was like a week after she had passed, and I swear she came to me in a dream. I don't really understand how that works. I just know that if it was possible for God to visit me in a dream in the view and shape of my mom, would not be surprised. Or maybe it's her. However that works up there, I don't know. But I had a dream that she was coming out of a restaurant, and I saw her, and I was like, Mom? Like in my dream, I'm knowing like, hey, you're dead. Do you know that you're dead? Because I'm seeing you in a dream. So that was my reaction. And then, and she said, oh, I'm like, Mom. And she's like, oh, you didn't know that I woke up, did you? And I was like, oh my God, literally in my dream. And so I start hugging her, and it was so real. I could feel her. And I'm like, Mom, can you please forgive me? I'm so sorry. And she starts laughing, and she's like, of course I do. And then I woke up from the dream, and I just had tears, just like you said, I had tears streaming down my face. And I have never felt regret since that dream. I have just had so much peace, because I felt like I had that conversation with her. I got to say, hey, I love you, and I'm so, so sorry. I love that. I love that. So what did change for you? It's like you were researching the Bible. What was it that made you say, okay, I'm convinced? Because I went down the same path that you did too. So please share that.
Yeah, I think first of all, it was that encounter that obviously said, okay, now I can kind of direct all this attention that I was using in studying all these other things to kind of narrow it down now and say, okay, let me see if these claims are real. Let me see if there's some holes that I can find in here and really just try to go deep in that area. And what I found was, just the credibility and the proof that is for scripture from a historical, from a scientifical, I mean, just a geographical, like, I mean, just from all these areas, they all prove the validity of scripture. There's not been another manuscript or document in ancient antiquity that has been preserved as much, that has been, reproduced as much, that has as much evidence. And so it was really just a lot of that just showed me like, man, like the Dead Sea Scrolls and a lot of these other discoveries that they made. It just was like, this is undeniable. And if this person really lived and this person really is who he claims to be, then there's a lot of things that I need to realign in my life. And thankfully, this would be a message to anybody out there too that maybe is unsure about coming to Jesus and all of that. Like, he did a lot of the work for me. Truthfully, like I would like to say that I didn't really, like, some of the taste was just not in my mouth anymore. Like I didn't, it was something that he just did for me. A lot of people just left my life and so from there, I developed a new family. I began, really immediately for me, because I came from that background, I immediately went back into the streets and into these environments and started preaching the gospel and started trying to reach people and trying to go to gang members and different people and all this kind of stuff. And so that was kind of, and then actually too, I, for a period of time was a rapper in a Christian hip hop group too. So that,
I love it.
so yeah. So that was another thing too, is I had a little rap group called Anointed Noise. That was me, another brother, and then my cousin who was a producer. And so we would do these shows and preach the gospel through rap music. And it was powerful. We would see gang members come to Christ and people leave their drugs at the altar, and it was just I look back at those times, and this was before me having a family, having kids, having a business. It was really kind of just a wild west of living out my faith, but it was incredible. And it's just a blessing.
Does it feel like snapshots are either too basic to help or too complex to fit your business? Trying to untangle someone else's workflows can feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be that way. I'm Marla, and I work with agencies and business owners to design and build custom CRM and AI systems that actually align with how you operate your business. If you're tired of trying to do it all yourself, let's connect. Reach out at marlaharmon.com. It sounds like you really did lean into the calling that God put on your heart. And so, but I want to go back, if you don't mind. Can you tell me about what it was like from the moment that you became saved and to the point that you went on the journey where you felt equipped enough to go out and talk to other people in the community about your faith? I mean, there's usually a point where you evolve. And so was there ever a time where you didn't feel equipped? And what, can you just talk about that a little bit?
That's a great question. And that's a great question because I realize that a lot of people kind of get stuck on that a bit. And I've had the opportunity to counsel many people that on that same very thing. For me, I didn't encounter that. And I didn't encounter that because I was a bit extreme with whatever way I was living. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like I was extreme. I was going hard for the world. You know what I mean? And then when God got a hold of me, I just went hard for him. And so I literally lost 90% of my friends within the first week of that dream because I couldn't stop talking about Jesus. They're just like, bro, like you're killing me right now. Like, like they all thought it was a phase. And so they just like, leave this guy alone. You know what I mean? Like, so I didn't have to really do anything like that. I was just so full of like, I got to tell people that it didn't. And now I look back and I see how much of a blessing that was, because now in my faith, I get more hung up than I did when I first got saved. Like I know more now and have had more experience now but I get more hung up now like that, and I'm like, when the way that God sets things up, like he qualifies the called, you know what I mean? You don't need to be qualified. You just need to open your mouth and be willing to be used by him. Share your story. You don't have to talk about things you don't know. You don't have to be an expert on all these topics and all this stuff, but tell people what you know and he'll do the rest.
Do you ever feel like, or did you ever feel like a hesitation to talk about your faith so openly with business? I know a lot of business owners really struggle with that. Sometimes they feel like they need to create another business to be just strictly Christian. And I think that there's such a beautiful way for us to intermingle our faith with our business without just saying, I'm a Christian high level coach, or I'm a Christian video producer. How do you, or did you ever have any conflicts with that? Like, should I be open about it? And then was there ever any like backlash for that?
Yeah, there was when I started kind of getting into the government. When I started, because I had a kind of I already knew that there were some things that, probably would not rub people the right way. And in the very beginning of me getting into government stuff, I worried a little bit more. And that was kind of like, because I was trying to get in this, I was trying to be in the rooms, I was trying to network. I was trying to be liked by these people that were key decision makers and all this kind of stuff. And so I do remember times where I felt like, toning it down, or like, hey, don't be so. And I'm thankful, because every time I felt that way, it always bothered me, like internally.
Mhm.
And I always was like, I'm not going to hide who I am. If they don't like me, then I just can't do that. So it didn't really last, but I will say this, to those people that may feel that way, you got to understand, and this is something that took me a long time to understand, is that, Ephesians 2:10, which is a huge verse that is like a pillar to me in my life. It says that we are his workmanship, and we're created in Christ to do good works. And a lot of times people think that good works is just charity, but it's not. It's also to your business too. It's everything that you've been created to do, everything that you put your hands and your mind and your effort to, you were created to do that. And so I think that if you can just allow everything you do just to be an expression, like there's times to preach the gospel for sure, and there's times to just do a good job, you know what I mean? And I think if you understand that doing just a good job in moments is preaching the gospel as well,
Mhm.
then it could take off some of that pressure of feeling like you got to win every soul for the Lord. Like I just don't think that way. I think that, your life is an expression, your integrity, how you do business, how you deliver, how you respond. All of these things are all a part of your witness. And if there's moments that people ask you, which there have been, there have been people who have asked me, and I've had the opportunity to pray for them. I've had the opportunity to minister to them, to witness to them. People that you would look from a government public eye and be like, not that guy. Yes, that guy too. Like I know people, you know what I mean, that have also done the same thing and been in those rooms. And so, it's just amazing to see how God will use you. But when you move like that, God will create opportunities for those people to inquire, like, man, why do you do that? So I think, yeah, just staying flexible.
I think it's also so great. I've talked about this all the time, the social filter. It's so great when you are your true, authentic self on social
Yeah.
media, especially
Yeah.
because you're giving people the opportunity to get closer to you or move further away from you. It's like
Hmm.
you don't have to worry about how people perceive things because
Yeah.
you're just your true authentic self. And it's like the social filter goes into work and it's like maybe they're not a Christian, but they're like, "Hey, I know the guy's a Christian. So if I don't hate Christians and I feel like I can work with this Christian guy on my video, then it's all good." But if people are like, "Oh, I hate those Christian people," thank
Hmm.
the Lord above, literally, that you did not try to book an appointment to do a consultation. So I
Yeah.
think it's such a beautiful thing when you're just your true authentic self. Plus, I mean, come on. even the worst post, God is going to turn into our good, right? So
Yeah, can I just share one other thing on that,
sure,
if it's
yeah,
okay?
yeah.
One area that I really did struggle with though, especially, and this I think speaks to the same issue of like trying to modify yourself, is when I initially was trying to get into government. I felt I felt very, very insecure in the fact that a lot of these people had higher education. I had none. They came from a certain upbringing and background, and they're golfing and going to Sonoma wine country and all this kind of, and I knew nothing about that, and I knew nothing about even their backgrounds. Like my background wasn't like that, and I remember feeling very insecure in a lot of these rooms because these are high educated people in government that have graduated from here, and just the things that they value and the things that they talk about. It's just like, it felt like such a foreign, they're talking about college, different things in college. And I'm just like, I don't even know. I've heard that word, but I don't know what that means. Like, I don't even barely even know what a semester is. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't know this stuff. And I felt very insecure. And I remember there was a moment of time, I don't remember how long, but I tried to hide the fact of my upbringing, and I tried to hide the fact of my experiences and I remember it wasn't actually until I started being authentic about my story and my background that people actually wanted to hire me more. That they were like, yo, we need to reach these people. This is the guy to do it. He knows them. Actually, and funny enough, this is such a funny story, but one of my biggest clients became colleges because I'm the perfect guy to market to the people that don't want to go. So, it's like, it's just a proof that God will use those things, those inefficiencies, those things that you are ashamed of. He will turn those things into your greatest superpower. It's not by coincidence that you went through what you went through. It's not by chance that you have the experiences that you have. And there's a purpose for that. And God will use that and redeem that and make it a source of actually why people want to hire you. And that is, once I leaned into my story and started sharing my experiences, it only got me more attention. And I would even hear people like kind of bragging about it. Yo, this guy learned how to do everything off of YouTube. Like, this is amazing. Like, what? And I was like, well, I was embarrassed of that, so it's just cool how he does that.
So literally YouTube University.
YouTube
But
University.
so was there a turning point that caused the shift, or was it just a slow realization that you needed to be authentic to your true self? Was there a kind of a breaking point where you said, that's it, I'm not going to hide my background and my story and my education, and you just went all in?
Yeah, there was it was kind of not no so much of a breaking point, but there was a relationship that I met, basically got introduced to when I was starting to try to get into some of the government stuff, and it was with at that time the chief of police, who was the first black police chief in Sacramento, who came from a rough background. He was adopted. He had the story, like he understood, like we understood each other. And I remember, doing some work with him, and just the level of almost kind of interest and I don't want to say approval, but the like, he was very proud of what I had been through and come through, and that so much so that he would share it with other people and get me access into different rooms and things like that. And I remember thinking like, wow, this guy, like, he knows a lot of this stuff, and he thinks it's an asset. And I remember it was kind of at that moment where I was like, yeah, you should lean into this. One, because it's authentic. It really is. And two, because it's actually what makes you valuable to these people. There's actually people looking for guys just like you that can communicate this kind of message to certain people that you know how to reach. And that's something that he kind of seen in me first. He's seen that, yo, you know how to reach the hood. You know how to reach these kids out here running around in gang life, and you know what interests them, and you know how to speak to them. And once I started leaning into it, one, I felt better about myself too. I was like, yeah, this is my strength. But two, it just opened up just some crazy doors. And even one of those doors now, well, it opened up back then in 2020, but now I actually go into California prisons and do media, video production, documentary storytelling, and teaching. I teach incarcerated individuals how to do content marketing, how to do video production, storytelling, all this kind of stuff. So it's just like it, that whole, there's a scripture that says your gifts will make room for you, right? And that's true. It's like I didn't realize that my experiences and my upbringing was a gift. It was actually something that I was ashamed of because I felt like it disqualified me. But the Lord showed me that it was a gift, and it made open doors that not a lot of people actually, there's only probably 5 people in California that have the level of media access inside of incarceral settings that I do. So it just opened up like a whole nother thing that I never even knew was possible.
What are maybe the top 3 things that you have done that you are most proud of?
Specifically like in business or
life?
I think the very first thing that is at the top of my list is being a faithful husband and father. Those are 2 things that I never seen growing up. And I remember having a conversation with a pastor that was mentoring me. And, the topic was about marriage. And I was telling him, I don't know, man, I don't know. And he was like, why not? Like, why such hesitancy? And, the statistic of like, 50% of marriages fail. I said, what if you knew that, 50% of planes that you were going to get on was going to crash? Like, would you take a flight? There's a 50% chance that this plane could go down. Like, would you get on that flight? And he was like, whoa, I never thought about it like that, and truthfully, growing up, I never seen a successful marriage. Not one. So it was something that kind of freaked me out. And it was something that I didn't know how I would do it, but now my wife and I just celebrated 10 years in marriage. We have 2 beautiful kids, 6 and 8. They're wonderful stages of their life. Obviously, actively involved in their life as a father, which I myself didn't have. And many of the people that I grew up with didn't have. And so I think the biggest achievement that is at the forefront of everything that I do and everything that I am is being a faithful husband, and also to being a faithful father. So I think that that's number 1. I think number 2 would be, one of the biggest moments that I had to take was I had a corporate sales job that I worked my way up. I got basically a customer service position, and then I turned that into like an appointment setting position, and then to a sales position, and to account manager position. And so I kind of worked my way up, and I was there for about 12 years. And this is when I started learning video production. And it was very difficult for me to leave that job and go all in on my passion, but I'm so thankful. Even a week before I put in my notice, I had a dream that I put in my notice, and I was trying to like pull it back. I was so fearful because it was so comfortable, at that job. And so I think that's an achievement of like, and that was in large part due to my son. My son was born at that time, around that time. And I just remember saying, I might fail in business, I might not succeed, but at least my son will know that his father lived out what he believed in. And that was more important than succeeding in business. That was just like, man, I need to set the example for my son that, what, if you believe in something, go for it. And, and so I would say that's the second thing. And then third is just, that's a good question. I think really just, I don't know. I will say this, that there's been moments in business, and maybe you've experienced some of these too, where I thought certain things would do more than what they did. I thought that, okay, the 6-figure mark, okay, this mark, okay, owning a home, owning this, doing the vacations, like, I thought that those things, especially because a lot of them I didn't have. So I thought, oh, this is what's going to really bring a lot of fulfillment. And they're definitely cool, and they're definitely like, it's awesome, but it's a lot less than what I thought, and what I realize is that the things that really matter, are the things most of the time that you already have, so I don't know. I'll just kind of leave it on those 2 and a little advice.
I think that third one was awesome though, because it's like you have taken stock of what you had, what you have now and realized like, whoa, I really had it all then. I just now
Yeah,
it's more fulfilling maybe.
for sure.
I love it.
So, one of the things that is very interesting to me, I believe you're working on a new documentary. Are you able to talk about that at all at this stage?
I absolutely am. The only issue is I'm working on multiple documentaries, so I'm not sure which
Ah.
one.
So it's about missing people?
Oh
And
yeah,
you wanna
so
talk about
yeah,
that?
yeah. So this is a great documentary right now. It's surrounding an issue of missing and murdered Indigenous people, and so this is affecting the tribal community. I'm being hired by the Sacramento District Attorney's Office, who is really leading the way in prosecuting and investigating some of these cases. And just a quick background on this issue is that I don't have the stats handy right now, but something like 40% of women in these tribal communities will either experience sexual assault or murder. Like it's a really wild issue that is surprising why it's not as public and not a lot of people know about it, you know. And it's created a kind of breeding ground for nefarious activity, you know, because people know that these communities are unsupervised and you can oftentimes get away with a lot of stuff. People actually from outside the community go into these communities to commit their crimes. So it's a huge issue. It's one, you know, the issue of sex trafficking has always been close to my heart, and really trying to do whatever I can from a media perspective, visual storytelling to tell that story. So this kind of aligns with that. It's just an issue that not a lot of people know about, and you know there is some complexities with the issue as far as law enforcement and tribal communities working together. They haven't had the best experience working together. And so, and then there's other types of little things that kind of play a role in why the issue is the way that it is. But it's just a huge privilege because one of the biggest things about tribal communities is obviously is trust. You know, there's a lack of trust. And so it's very difficult to be a outsider to come in and tell that story and have the trust of the community and the support of the community. So I consider myself extremely, anybody who knows tribal communities will know that that is a big deal, not to be taken lightly. So it's a huge honor to tell the story. And I look forward to really, you know, trying to tell it and also to trying to do more in this issue.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know that I had seen a documentary on this topic, and it was eye-opening to me. I think there's
Mhm.
so many people who don't know, so I love that you're gonna bring awareness to it.
Thank you.
It would be so hard for me to work on projects like that because I would make it my new mission every single project. I'd be like, well,
Yeah.
now this is top precedence in my
Yeah.
life until I resolve the issue. How do you balance all of that? Just like emotionally, like in your heart, because that would be definitely heartbreaking. How do you keep yourself from being like, I'm diving all into this topic. And then you move on to the next documentary and you're like, oh, I'm diving in. How do you balance like your heart with all of that?
Yeah, you know that's a great question, and I think once again it kind of goes back to some of these experiences and the upbringing that I had. You know, not to say it's like the worst that anybody's ever had, but it's definitely I got exposed to some really heavy things early on in life, and because of that, I think that it definitely affected me in a negative way. But I think that God used that to create one a sensitivity, and two a stomach for it. You know, it's like I get the same question. You know, there's times where I'm going inside of a prison with a camera and it's like, you're not safe. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there's certain, okay, you know, like, but you got a whole yard full of like 60 dudes and like three COs. Like, if they really wanted to pop off and do something, you're not standing a chance, you know? And so things like that, in addition to things like these stories that are really difficult. And you know, I also too, one of the other documentaries that I'm working on is a fentanyl campaign, and so seeing like OD dead bodies, like body cam footage, like it's wild. But at the same time, you know, it kind of goes back to I was made for this, like this for me anyways. Like um I seen a lot of stuff, I've been exposed to a lot of stuff, and not to say it doesn't bother me, but I consider it a sacred privilege to be able to tell the story. So it's, to me, it's just an honor, and it is exciting in some ways, as weird as that, whatever, like it is cool. I just find it really interesting and fascinating to be in some of these settings and tell the story. So it's kind of a mix of all of that.
They say, like we were talking about earlier, that God will equip the called. And so in this instance, because this is your calling, it sounds like he's also guarding your heart so that you don't experience extreme hurt over the different things
Sure.
that you see. I can't imagine. But if that's your calling, then we know he's going to equip you for it.
That's right. That's a great point. Yep.
Jesse, where do you think, in the next 5 years, where do you think all of this is leading you? Do you have a plan? Are you just, because oftentimes people ask me, well, what's the goal, Bridget? What are you doing all this for? And I just say, I have no idea. Just like, it's like, I feel like God's just I feel like a blindfolded person who's just, God has my hand and I'm just walking along, like sometimes afraid there might be a step I'm not seeing or something. And he's like, I got you. Just keep following.
Yeah.
I feel like that all the time. And so I really don't have a 5-year plan. And I don't have even a plan maybe for next year, which is weird to say in business. But how do you balance that? How do you balance like your goals for your business and where God wants to lead you? Do those two things ever conflict, or are you like me and you're just like, God, here's my hand and put the blindfold on, I'm ready to go?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's so interesting that you asked that. And I will take this as another sign of from God, because I do know there's some cases where you just don't. You're just like, hey, I'm taking whatever but I do know the next assignment, and it's kind of freaking me out a little bit because I've built the business for quite some time, and I'm pretty comfortable, and I got all my bills paid, and I got all my vacations planned out, and I know how to do whatever I need to do to survive. And now the Lord has really been, and this has been for years now, actually. So I've been a little bit disobedient and trying to avoid it. But he's really calling me more into the public space to help other, specifically Christian creatives. I feel like that's a huge calling for me, as I want to help them in their businesses. A lot of them struggle in their businesses, and a lot of them struggle with understanding the balance between what I would say is business and ministry. A lot of them have a heart and a passion for both, and they don't know how to quite fit in the world. And this was me as well, is like, I'm in the church, but I'm different. I think different. And the pastor doesn't really know how to pastor me that well, because I'm creative and I'm an entrepreneur and I color outside the lines, and it's kind of like, you're a disruption, right? And then on the other side, I'm in the business world, but man, faith and purpose and value and doing good is so important. And people are just like, dude, just get the money. Like, just, and so I think that there's a lot of creatives like that too. And I really feel a call, even like I would say, not to say officially the title of a pastor, but like a pastoral call to those people to help bring wisdom in the things that I've learned in business and creative entrepreneurship, and also to how your faith can play a role in all of that. So I do think the next season for me, which I'm kind of gearing up in 2026 to really make that launch, is creating more content, more messaging, more offers, more things for what I would call Kingdom Creatives, which is kind of the name of the brand, Kingdom Creatives. So I think that's my next assignment, is really doing a lot more teaching and content creation of myself, not just for other people.
I love it. You need a community, Jesse. I'm all about the communities, but you need a community for sure.
That's right. You're right.
Gathering up all
Right.
those people that you know, because I know that you have so much value. Anybody can see what you do and know that you have value to provide.
Thank you. Thank you.
And on that same note, Jesse, you were just live streaming on that topic. I mean, I was on your live stream, an hour ago, and this is the exact topic that you were talking about, and it was incredible. I would love to see you lean more into this space. I felt moved. I went back and I was watching some of your live streams and, some of your reels. And I will say, like, I was searching for more of that content, and I saw brilliant, like behind the scenes content, but I was touched and moved by your personal content where you were
Wow.
sharing about you and you were sharing about your faith. I was truly moved. So
Mm.
let that be your sign.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
We had a conversation with Matt Decino, which is actually why we started this podcast in the first place. And we were talking about, for a long time, he never shared like personal content on his Facebook profile. And
Mhm.
Marla and I were both saying, oh my gosh, what happened? You just started sharing all this stuff. And it was like about his faith and about just like behind the scenes things, like Marla was saying. And it was so impactful to us. And I know other people because it was like the hot conversation at the summit. But it was such a transition, and that personal content helped us to see Matt in a whole different light. And so
Mhm.
it's like that social filter that takes into effect. Maybe some people are like, oh, why is Matt talking about this or whatever? But those aren't people that he wants working with in his company anyway, right? So it's
Sure.
like most people, though, are going to see, oh my gosh, that's Matt's values. That's what's
Mhm.
important to Matt. This is what Matt does on a Tuesday afternoon. Oh, look at Matt's kids. But it's like it helps you to get to know that person as a real person. So I love that you're sharing more content, more personal content. And I love that you're getting more into the personal branding because that's
Mhm.
really in this world of AI, that's really one thing that it can't replace is humans
That's right.
being real humans. So I absolutely love that. So where do you want to take this? Do you want to just help churches or just Christians with content creation?
Yeah, so I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts because so I have kind of two little lanes that I'm kind of playing around with, and basically one is Kingdom Creative, that's what I called it, and it's basically just really helping Christian creative entrepreneurs navigate the world of business and ministry and faith and all these things, and really the way I would look at that brand is it's simply a ministry. It's just like it's what I do out of. I mean, sure, there might be an offer here or there, an event or something like that, but the goal of it is really to just be a resource and to just gather people together that are experiencing the same kind of issue, and just be a voice, as somebody who's walked through some of that to help get them where they're trying to go for God's glory, right? So that's one thing. And there's another brand that I'm really that I've been building in the back end as well, that I have a lot of the content for, and that's called Modern Storyteller. And basically, this is like
Mm.
basically AI and automation for visual storytellers. It's like everything that you just said, like the world is changing, things are changing. And the way for people in my industry, if you're a content creator or you're a videographer, if you want to survive, then you're going to have to learn some new skills. And I think that's where Modern Storyteller comes in, is really helping to equip them with this knowledge. And it's also too kind of like a building in public kind of brand, because I'm learning a lot of this stuff too. So it's kind of just sharing and creating a community around, like, hey, if you have an interest in storytelling and stuff like that, let me show you how these tools can help you stand out going forward.
Out of curiosity, is there any reason that those two lanes can't merge?
I was thinking that too.
No,
I
yeah,
mean,
no,
yeah.
I don't think so at all. And I definitely at least this is the way I'm thinking about it. And I would love your guy, because I have a tendency to think myself in circles. So I might be off. But the way I kind of look at it a little bit is Modern Storyteller is kind of like the curriculum, like the program.
Mhm.
Like, this is what you're gonna learn to be able to do this. And Kingdom Creative is more of just the heart of like create. But I do see them, like, obviously they're gonna overlap, but yeah, at least that's kind of how I see it. Like, for the people that just want the encouragement and they just want the Bible stuff, you know what I mean? Like, that's where
Mm.
Kingdom create, like the live streams that you watch today is just me sharing my heart as a Kingdom creative. And then more technical knowledge, I think, will be housed more under the program of Modern Storyteller. At least that's how I was thinking through it.
So you asked for feedback. It was like I just saw your whole marketing strategy in my brain.
Oh, let's go.
So,
Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
so you should use your personal profile for the Kingdom Creative, but your call to action is for your community.
That's right.
So
Yep.
you can mix them. But if you
Yep.
use
I
your
can do it.
personal profile, it's like, hey, I'm Jesse. This is what's important to me. You can invite people there. They can get in your network, learn more about you, learn more about what you do, and then move them into that community. Because it's kind of, again, the social filter. It's like you're putting yourself out there, you're sharing the things that are important, and you're allowing them to decide if they want to follow you or not. Then when they become followers, then you are inviting them into the community.
I love that. Yeah, I think that kind of aligns to with because truthfully, so my media company is called Storyline Media, and my this program is Modern Story. Everything that I do revolves around story, right? That's kind of my specialty, if you will. And what's the greatest story ever told, right? So they're gonna get it somewhere or another, regardless. But yeah, I do like the idea of having a community and then kind of an offer or a service that they can go deeper in.
Yeah, because it's real
Absolutely.
easy for you. It's like you're sharing all the content. These are the things you're passionate about, and they're watching you. Your production is on point. I mean, the things that you're saying helps to build the know, like, and trust factor. That's why you're on the podcast, because we've been friends for years now, and I didn't even know what the name of your agency was. But that's not the point, right? I got to know you and the things that are important to you. And I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
Josie shared that. And that's awesome. We have so much in common. These are the things that I'm thinking. So if I'm watching your video and you're talking about all these things I'm interested in, and I'm having this perception, when you go to make an offer, I'm much more likely to accept the offer.
Yep.
So I think that's a beautiful solution for you. And also, it's not bogging you down with maintaining two different communities, creating content for two different audiences, and you're just kind of mixing it all in there. And then you can
Yep.
monetize with your tools. So if you're in your community and you're saying, here's how you create your videos, here's how plan the content out, and you're showing the social planner. If you like the tool, here's the link, to create an account.
Mhm.
Just
For sure.
monetize it with your
That's
own
a great
tools.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say like both of the different topics were of interest to me, so I whether you split it or whether channel it through personal or I mean you're speaking to one person about two different topics that both of which I have interest. So I would see where I could see where there's a lot of crossover potentially for the same target market.
Sure. Absolutely. Very good.
Well, Jesse, is there anything else that you want to share with the people watching and listening? Maybe something that they don't know about you that you would like to share?
You know, I really do think that specifically now, kind of shifting into the AI space, I think that what is going to set people apart is actually going to be the story. It's going to be your personal story. And that's why I think that, a lot of people are making the shift to sharing more personal information. I think that it's, first of all, authentic and natural and easy, right? But there's also to it an advantage to doing so. And you're going to create community. You're going to stand out. So I think that, as we see these tools become more accessible and more easy to use, and they get better and cheaper and all that kind of stuff, now what we're going to be competing on is creativity, is the ability to tell your story, right? And so I would say, from that perspective, that I think that leaning into your own personal story, the way I kind of explain it to people is storytelling is like music. You can have a keyboard and you can have all the keys, but if you don't play them in an order, then it's just going to be noise. And this is what I see a lot of people do with their content, is they're playing a bunch of keys and think it's music, but really it's not. And so, and truthfully, even myself included, the reason why we're not playing certain keys is because many times there's some shame or there's some insecurity, or there's some fear, or there's something that is stopping you from playing those kind of keys, but those are the keys that need to be played. So I would just encourage you, if you're, anybody listening who's in a situation where they feel like telling their story, but they know that there's more in them. They have a higher purpose, a greater calling, whatever it is. But they're just fearful a little bit. I think that now is the time to lean into that. Now is the time to be courageous, to be bold, and to share your story, and to invite people into your story that they already like, kind of like Marla was saying, she's already interested in it. She just needs somebody to make the post, to make the live stream, right? And so I think on that side is what I would say. And then something more towards the faith driven creatives and entrepreneurs. I think that now is we're coming into a critical time where God is using the creators, the innovators, the builders, the communicators to really be the mouthpiece for what he's doing in this world. And so I think there's kind of a bit of a prophetic message to those that, maybe have felt like they haven't quite fit in most of their life, or they felt like always something has been wrong with them and they haven't quite understood, where they fit. They don't fit in anywhere they go, and they're a bit outcast, and they're a bit, off, or this, or they get criticized. Like if you feel in that way, I think that we're coming into a season, if not already, where God is using those exact people, the outcasts, the people that have been wandering, to bring them, to use them specifically for his message, for what he's doing in this earth, and as a source of encouragement and a source of light. So if that's you, I just want to encourage you from a faith perspective to be bold, to be courageous, to share your voice, to share your story, to share what God has put on your heart, and to leave everything else up to him. He'll do the rest.
Amen.
I love that. And so I have to challenge you, Jesse. You have teased us with this community. I want to challenge you to, if you're willing to accept the challenge, I would like for you to create this group before this airs so that we can put a link to your community in the show notes. And I want to be the first person in it.
You got it. Challenge accepted.
I'll be number 2.
You got it. You got it.
I love it. Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Jesse,
I am too.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And I know that people are going to get some value out of this conversation. I definitely have myself. So thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you on the next episode of Leverage and Lead. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
That Jesse, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I'm a little bit speechless because it's so good. It's so good. I just think that when you talk to another Christian, I think a lot of people, especially on social media, they say, oh, I'm a Christian and I believe in God and all this stuff. But when you actually talk to another person who is a Christian, who has had their hearts changed by God, like I have, I know you have, Marla, it is a different type of conversation. It's just much deeper, and it is so, I just don't even know the words. Confirming, maybe that's the word I'm looking for. Just so good. And again, this is another one of those episodes where I feel like I am now his biggest fan, because every time we talk to these people, it's like getting to know them on a different level. It's like, now I love you. Like, I just want to tell you, I'm going to be stalking out your community now. I love, like, I feel like I just know him and our guests. I feel like I just know them on such a deeper level that honestly, it's priceless. I just feel like God led us to this podcast. And this is one of those episodes that just confirms that we're in the right place.
100%. And what a lot of people don't hear is we turned off the recording afterwards. And, that's literally what we told him. We're like, you have to start the community. You have to rush to the community and build it before this podcast airs so that we can be your biggest fans in your new community. So hopefully he'll be able to get that up and launched, and we'll see everyone on the inside of Jesse's community.
Yeah, for sure. So if you're watching this, be looking in the description, because you can join Jesse's community with all of us.
That's right. We'll see you there.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
If If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode and join the Leverage and Lead private community for live coaching 4 days a week at leverageandlead.com. We'll see you inside.